From the 809 Restaurant and Lounge in the heart of Inwood, New York City, welcome to Inwood Artworks On Air, where we meet the musicians, filmmakers, writers, theater makers, and artists of all stripes who make their home in what we affectionately call Upstate Manhattan. I'm your host, Aaron Sims.
And I'm Jonathan Bell.
And this is Live and Local. It's our podcast dedicated to showcasing the musicians of Manhattan, and we talk with them about what they do, and best of all, listen to them perform live in one of our favorite local venues. Who is joining us today, Jonathan?
Aaron, today we welcome guitarist Ric Molina. Born and raised in New York City, Ric's been playing the quattro from the age of 4 and moved on to the guitar when he was 6 years old, plucking out melodies from overhearing the classical, pop, blues, and world music from his father's paint studio. From the age of 12 to the present, he has worked as a guitarist in nearly every professional setting. He's played the road on Broadway national tours such as Big River and The Who's Tommy, and for the last 17 years, he's been the guitar chair 1 and assistant conductor for the smash Broadway musical Wicked. Previous to Wicked, he played a different kind of popular music by overseeing the musical direction of the pop boy band 98 Degrees from the moment of their ascent to superstardom, hiring 3 separate touring groups and also recording with the band. Ric's work has also extended to television, having composed the underscore music for 3 seasons of The Electric Company, as well as the cartoon Prankster Planet on PBS. In June of 2019, he was cast to play the part of the guitarist in The San Juan Hill Serenaders, in the forthcoming remake of West Side Story by Steven Spielberg. Aside from his work on screen and commercial stages, he can be found sitting in and playing with various bands, including the Ric Molina Group and the Uptown Guitars. We're very excited to hear what he has in store for us today, Aaron, on Live and Local.
And without further ado, Ric Molina. Well, that was wonderful, Rick. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, man. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Sure. Well, how you been?
Well, dealing dealing with this change in civilization, as I guess we could call it. Actually, things have been thankfully well. We're healthy, and there has been some time for reflection. And I guess I'm just being a shut-in, just like everybody else.
You're doing your part, right?
I'm doing a good job of that. Doing a lot of grocery shopping and a lot of cooking at home, which is, a nice thing. It's nice to be in a smaller circle of commuting and whatnot. But on the other hand, also, I'm itching to get back into the world and play some music.
Well,
I miss that.
I can't tell you how much I've missed seeing you playing live, and it was a treat having you playing just now. So could you tell us what you just played for us?
That was, when we spoke earlier and you invited me to do this, which was very gracious of you. You said you wanted to hear some original music, and it's not often that I get a chance to play original music, except in the course of perhaps playing, with the Uptown Guitars or with my group, which is kind of rare lately. Most of my work is work for hire, so I'm called in to play other scores and whatnot. So I just decided to take some of the ideas of larger compositions that I've written, because I do quite a bit of composing, chamber works and whatnot. So I took some of those excerpts and strung them together. I had a bit of a roadmap, and then allowed myself to just kind of improvise the segues in between the songs, in between the ideas. So it was just kind of a thing I kind of made up as I was going along.
It's awesome. And a variety of styles we heard.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was, you left me spinning a bit, I gotta say. I'd like to jump on your word roadmap.
Uh-huh.
And I was wondering how you negotiated your segs, because I did feel like you were meandering towards certain destinations along the way.
Oh, absolutely.
Very expertly. And my impression of the beginning, it was almost like, not to bring up, we were talking earlier, and even the beginning to me sounded a little Bach Brahmsian, and it's almost like an etude.
Mm-hmm.
It began sort of like a...
it was actually, there's an etude that I wrote. It's called the Echo Etude, and it's written for classical guitar. So it's played in a certain fingerstyle way to address a right-hand technical issue. And I decided to do it with a pick, and it does have a kind of I would call it a post-minimalist approach because of the repetition. It stays within a certain compass, a rhythmic compass or whatever. Right. And that when that piece ends, it ends in a certain tonality. It's an E major 7th tonality. So I tried to take that, and I was thinking of the next piece that I was going to play, and I just set a kind of a harmonic exploration to get to the next setup for the next harmony. So in that case, I was going from E major 7 to E flat major 7, which is the next tune called November, which was the second kind of group of music that you hear, this melodic thing. And so I just, not to get geeky about the harmony or whatnot, it's like, how do you get from E major 7 to E flat?
Please tell me.
So, in this case, I went through C.
Yeah. Third relations are always...
And then I found myself somehow I found myself in E7, and then from E7 I moved down a minor third. Mm-hmm. Are we going to sleep yet?
No, I'm with you. C sharp minor.
I just got a coffee, but I'm good though.
Okay.
Good.
This is like being at college again.
Well, this is just the thing, is I started thinking of key centers and working my way through them, and also just allowing my ear, not, it's like you kind of plant flags you put some guardrails there so you don't fall off the, completely. But a lot of it is intuitive, and a lot of it is just allowing yourself to just be in the moment and let the music tell you where to go. So
have you done things like that before, where you've had pretty, through composed things with as points of reference in between which you sort of anticipate extemporizing? Have you performed in such a manner?
Yes, I have, and that has been, I think, my focus as I've matured as a musician, because of the fact that I play so many things that are set in stone and that are required to be, kind of like an expert rendition of something that is expected. You learn how to bring the interpretation to the moment, but everything is set in stone. So the thing that is the most exciting thing for me is improvisational music and playing with other musicians. I love to play solo, because solo you could do whatever you want to do, but when you play with other musicians, I think there's a quote that says that playing in an ensemble, playing with musicians, is one of the most, one of the deepest expressions of friendship,
Mm-hmm.
And humanity that we can, because it's a nonverbal, you appear in sound, and then you acknowledge and you communicate through sound. And really what you're saying is, I hear you and I like it, and I can say something along what you're saying, but it's all nonverbal, so that's a very beautiful thing. But there are also codified elements which are really exciting and interesting to me. So to answer your question, if there was a piece of music that was through composed, usually I do this with the Uptown Guitars, which plays gypsy jazz music. And I'm notorious for doing this, and I don't think I'm the most popular person in the band because of what I do, but we'll go to play a tune, and I will just start playing it either in a different key, or I'll stop or slow it down, or do it in 3/4 instead of 4/4. And rather than waiting for, whether or not they're going to go along with me or whatever, I just do it. So what this does is it stimulates your ability to really act on, to react on your own feet. And I like to think of it as listening as if you broke into somebody's house. Because that's really...
What are you offering?
Well, hopefully we get paid at the end of the gig. Right. I'm offering, I don't know, like pay at the end of the gig, and maybe I'll buy drinks.
Here's the getaway guy.
To kind of mollify all the anger.
And that's just among your bandmates.
Sometimes it goes out to the audience too.
But that's a beautiful way you put it, though, is that it's like you're asking someone to meet you, putting it out there, and it's interesting to see how that's requited musically.
I guess you get that. That's part of the perks of being the leader.
I think so. Because if you're just a sideman or something like that, that's just grounds to get fired.
Right.
Unless that's the agenda. Some groups have that agenda, and that's what I like to do. Is I heard recently I heard a very interesting interview with Bill Frisell, the great guitarist, and he was talking about how he did a gig at the Vanguard with Ron Carter. And Ron said, these are the tunes we're going to play, and we're going to play them in this order every set. And that was it. And, Bill said at first it felt so restricting. But he said by the end of the week, Ron would play something and he'd be like, what is he doing? So
Right.
you could segue between the tunes because you knew what was coming next.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How you got there.
Right.
And what you did when you got there is really the essence of playing music, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it actually frees you and calms you down to really just listen and react.
One of my handful of favorite musicians is a guy named Craig Taborn. I don't know if
he's amazing, yeah.
Yeah, well, he has this great, it's a podcast I heard him. He was talking about the various ways in which setting limits frees you. And that kind of just reminded the way he talked about how the way he creates a roadmap. He'll do very like pretty strict things. Like I'm going to only use like minor sixths. Or I'm only going to use notes between, this register, and then I'm going to sort of increase just emotional intensity, and the end goal is going to be some sort of mode, and I'm going to get there this way or that way. But sometimes it's very specific, like I'm going to spend 2 minutes just meditating on a certain interval. So it can be, that simple. And then for him, that's actually what unleashes his freedom, because otherwise he feels paralyzed by the infinite possibilities that you're, staring at. So I kind of totally feel you on that one.
Getting back to what you kind of said earlier about playing in large ensembles and the music is made in between the songs, so to speak, and bring it to the pre-pandemic, you spent 17 years in the #1 share at Wicked. So,
you mean chained to the oar?
Well, going in that direction, I'm not sure what's more amazing, having a steady gig in a Broadway pit, or being able to play the same music up 8 times a week for 17 years without going crazy. and listen, not taking anything away from the integrity of the work, and I acknowledge the great irony. I know it's a sad state.
It's
but
the not going crazy comment.
I gotta be me, And listen, the funny thing is, I acknowledge right now the great irony in saying all this is that during the pandemic, when there are no shows anywhere at this moment. So can you speak to how one navigates the world of a musician working on a long-running Broadway show, and it's going to what kind of intimated in your laughter is like it's a steady gig, but there's discipline, there is the by rote, there are cues, there are specific guideposts you must hit, and there's not a lot of room for improvisation throughout. And yet there is a bit of a golden handcuffs to it at the same time. So, because for many, it's the aspiration. It's the golden standard for many. So you've been there longer than I'll say most. So it'd be great to hear you talk about it.
Well, you hit the nail on the head in all those points that you brought up, Aaron. I mean, it is definitely an unbelievable stroke of luck. It's not something that you prepare yourself for, to get that kind of bountiful just platform to live. It becomes a thing that it gives in so many ways. It's such a profound, just uplifting opportunity. Most of the things that I did from the moment I got on Wicked were because of Wicked. So the fact that it's this, what they call it, this Broadway juggernaut and everything, it's like I'm stumbling over unbelievable luck. And I'm not a unique individual that garnered this kind of, it's like, oh, well, he needs to get that show. It's not like that at all. And, so I every day that I went to work, I always thought to myself, well, I'm either going to get fired for being an imposter, or this is going to close, just because I was a freelancer all my life, and I made choices to become a guitar player, which means living within my means. And it's not an easy thing to do. Beans and rice for 25 years because, just didn't have any money. But to answer your question as to the nuts and bolts of negotiating, something which is, on the one hand, like I said, such a bountiful plus, and then the mind-numbing repetition, no matter what the music is, just the aspect of having to go in and whatever shape you're in, mentally and emotionally, whatever, and to, sit with these people, and then you're in the thrall of everyone else who's going through it, and then you're sitting in a spot, the same spot, and all that. It becomes like your hallowed ground, to the point where if anybody moves anything, So it becomes a very unusual situation. To give you a thumbnail sketch of what happens, the first thing that attacks you is the body thing, the physicality of it. I never sat that long, never sat. I was always standing playing the guitar, right? So that's the first thing, is that you begin to experience incredible, strange body things that start happening with your whole, your body. And the other thing is and this is a real thing, playing the same notes over and over and over, the exact same notes every night, is a very acute, repetitive motion injury. It's a very specific one. So it's not like I'm playing guitar every night. I'm playing these notes every night. It actually gets that insidious. And there was a time when I almost had to quit. I had crippling tendonitis in both arms.
Wow.
From playing that. And the reason why was because you exert yourself for the 3 hours that you're doing the gig, right? But you have to prepare yourself mentally to be able to concentrate for 3 hours that way, and to react and to play the part. But there's a whole part of your psyche that is still a musician and wants to play other music and wants to be free and enjoy music. So I was taking classical guitar lessons, and I was working on other music, and I started to feel the sense that the music that I'm playing in Wicked is occupying this giant space in my mind, and I have to hold it there and keep it pristine, because you have to deliver perfectly. So there's all of this thought around that. And then you're trying to fill yourself up with something that is giving you a sense that you still are a musician. And what happens is you either over practice or you don't practice enough. So you have to learn how to navigate this very strange area there. And then there's an era where you show up and you learn to play the show without thinking, where your body just reacts to the noises. So you could be reading the New Yorker and something, you're just picking up your mandolin and playing, you put it down, and then you think to yourself, did I just play the mandolin? You're looking up to see if maybe someone's looking at you like, where were you? And you actually played it, right? And you're thinking about what you're going to have for dinner or whatever. So that happens, and that goes on for 17 years ago.
What year did that start? The cruise control moment.
About the fourth or fifth year in, it started to happen, and that went for about 3 years.
Okay.
Unapologetically. I'm not proud of it. And then there became the discovery when I had another gig where I couldn't play at all. I just had lost everything. I'd been in the gig for about 8 or 9 years, and I couldn't play a gig. I was just no ideas, no chops, didn't know how to do it anymore. It was just like not a musician anymore. And that was frightening. So that's when I started getting into gypsy jazz, and I started learning that music and studying with those people and playing that kind of music, and it began to invigorate me. And in that process, what happens, which I think is the most beautiful gift that I've gotten from 17 years at Wicked, is about 8 or 9 years in, I suddenly just understood what my position was in this music, which is to be exceptional. And it took over. And if I have a conversation with you, if I, step out of my apartment and see you in the hallway, I'm like, Aaron, how you doing today? You might say, same old shit, man. I got to go downtown. I got to do this, blah, blah, blah. But that's new. Even though we're saying the same topic. And that kind of shade of understanding is a very important thing for a musician in a long-running show, is to understand that I'm going to play these notes, but today is today, and this is this moment. And it's going to come out like this. And today I'm going to listen to just the viola when I play alone. And that saved me. So now it's just, whenever I play it, I'm enjoying it. I'm there. I'm 100% there. So it is a profound lesson.
That's
Jeez.
It's quite a journey.
Yeah.
And part of your journey is that it's allowed you to do many different things. And one of those things is to be, I'll quote you on this, the first non-pianist / guitarist to hold a position of assistant conductor on a major Broadway show. Not to get into the pomp and circumstance of it all, because honestly, we don't have the budget. But but I will say this though, because having a theater background my whole life, Wicked is a show of immense musical styles, like many contemporary Broadway shows tend to be. There's a lot of different stylistic choices and styles of music within and out. I'm curious how your background as a guitarist and your approach influences the execution of the performance when you're at the helm.
Oh, okay. Well, does sheer terror cover it?
Yes, it does, actually.
That's pretty much it. I had no idea. I mean, I had never pointed anything at a musician. So, they asked me and I said no. And then they came back a couple of weeks later and asked me again and I said no. I said, you're going to lose you'll lose a mediocre guitar player and you get an awful conductor. And finally I said, if you ask the other people in the orchestra if they want to do it, if nobody else wants to do it, then I'll do it. So, I don't think they asked, they just said, okay, good, so you're doing it. And it took me 4 months of very in-depth tutelage from Brian Perry, who was the musical director at the time and conductor, who I thank deeply for teaching me how to conduct. And he's, one of the guys that is incredibly well trained in that, and he taught me how to do it. And he was ruthless. And then I had people like Ben Cohn, who was playing the piano one chair, who was the music director for Dear Evan Hansen and a great musician himself, stopping me in the hallway at random moments and saying, okay, now do this section or do that section. Let me see this right now, So I had to memorize all of the gestures and whatnot. But to answer your question, there was a moment, I think, after I had done it like maybe a dozen times or something, where I suddenly felt the sensation of the orchestra at the end of the baton. And once I did that, I no longer paid attention to what I might be looking like, which is what happens in the beginning. You're very self-conscious. And aside from the little dialogue in your mind, the monologue that happens, like there were moments that were kind of terrifying where I would think to myself, I could just screw this up totally. Usually when you're waiting for a scene, you're thinking, I could just totally wreck this show. And the curtain will come down and I'll just be banished from Oz, in shame. Yeah. So, and sometimes there's that kind of thing, when you look over a cliff and you go, I could jump right now, and you're like, oh, don't jump. It's
but
like
you could.
A strange thing, but you could, right?
Right.
It's like a strange
It's a weird
impulse.
game, right?
That weird game happens when you're standing with the stick and waiting, and you're like, I could just totally screw this up. 2,000 people behind me. But again, this moment of having the orchestra on the end of the baton and suddenly hearing how beautiful everything is and watching someone sing and connecting with them, and it becomes something that is transcendent.
Wow.
And to me, that was the deepest thing.
I would hope for at least some time to not have to play, where I can live with the score and get to know. No. You just.
No, I would.
How did you do it?
Well, I got to the point where I would play. I had the show memorized. I had been playing it for 10 years, so I could play it. And then I had the conducting score in front of me. So whenever I wasn't playing the guitar, I'd put the guitar down, and then I would conduct. I'd be sitting in my chair, and I would be conducting. And Brian would be conducting the show, and he'd look down at me, and he'd go like, and he'd say,
Nice.
Or he'd go. And that's how I learned it. That's another piece of the puzzle.
Okay.
But I will say that the day I did it, I mean, I never had any rehearsal with a full orchestra. The most I did was I did rehearsals with a pianist and a drummer.
Okay.
When we were just rehearsing the ensemble. My parents were in the audience, and son, and one of my brothers, my wife. And, I got up there and I went like this,
Go.
The light went on and it went
Yeah.
like this. And then I heard the orchestra.
And your instincts take over too.
Yeah, well,
Your years of,
you try, but to be honest with you, being a rhythm section player, you're acutely aware of rhythm. You're acutely aware of the placement of notes. Not that it's more than any other musician. It's just like the thing that you learn. It's like your groove sucks. Get your groove together. So, if you go like this,
yeah,
in your mind as a rhythm player, you go boom, da 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 da. You see, you're kind of expecting this,
right.
but what you're hearing is this, boom, dun 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 dun. So nothing is lining up.
God.
It's all happening, and the brass over there are so late and so loud, and the drummer is right on, and the piano's right on, and the woodwinds are off, and the strings are kind of in between there, so no one is playing in time. And you're just going like this.
But it sounds like they are.
But in the audience,
Right.
everyone's
That's so
playing in
it
time.
reminds me of the first time I played a pipe organ in a big space. That was the weirdest thing, is the delay from
Right.
everything. Yeah, it's kind of an
Right.
interesting.
So it's like flying a kite. You pull it,
Yeah.
and then the kite goes up.
Well, we're going to switch gears to a different kind of musical expression and creativity. Wicked, I think, allowed this too, because you had that kind of, in an inadvertent way, it allows you to do other things.
Yeah.
So you spent 3 years composing incidental music as the underscore composer of the Electric Company for the Sesame Workshop,
Yeah.
amongst other things.
Right.
Can you speak to what makes a successful underscore, and also a bit about the process of writing incidental music for television?
Oh yeah, the successful underscore is the music that's never heard. I mean, in the rare, Dr. Zhivago or Titanic, there are these, there's this music that is just, it's part of what's happening in the movie. It becomes a character in the movie. But the things that are beautiful, the things that are, to me, are exceptional in threading that needle is to create something where there's a feeling, there's just kind of a murmur in your mind, or you're just lifted into the scene, but you don't know how it happens. And that's where the really successful underscore comes from. It's like, it's there, but you don't know it. And that's, like I said, it's like threading a needle. You have to be very careful how to do it. Sometimes you work in opposites. Like there's a lot of action, and you slow the music way down for the action, or take it out. And the opposite happens too. You can add a lot of music when something's just sitting there, and suddenly it's like a big crescendo or something, or maybe just a roll on a cymbal, or I don't know. So a lot of different things can happen. Blow a whistle, but. As far as the process, it's really interesting because I don't really know how it happens, but I will relate a quick story. When I was about 8 or 9 years old, my father took me to MoMA. My father was a painter, and he had been telling me about Guernica, the Picasso mural, which was in black and white. And he had explained to me the historical significance of that piece of work. And my dad worked on Madison Avenue as a storyboard art, as an artist in advertising, commercial artist. So I went to work with him, and for lunch we went to MoMA, and he took me up through the back stairs. We went in through the garden where the Henry Moore sculptures were, and then we went up through the back stairs, so it was on the 3rd floor. We're walking up these stairs, and then he opens the door, and he goes, "There's Guernica." And I looked, and there's this enormous black and white, and horse, and the baby. And I heard it. I heard it. I heard music. And on the side panel were all of the sketches, all of the studies for it. I went and I looked at them, and just saw how it was done. But I was looking at this piece of artwork and I could hear music. And I still tap into that. When, if I have to do something like that, I just tap into that mode. I just look and then I hear it.
Wow.
The philosophical viewpoint that has helped me through this is to understand that there is no real willful control here. Like, I'm not actually writing music to the film. I'm just experiencing this moment and making some sounds to it. And if I go back and do it again, it'll be different and it'll be just as authentic because it'll be that moment. The beauty and the remarkable thing about these artistic endeavors, when they are successful, when they move you to tears, when they make you laugh, when they make you angry, is the confluence of all of these people that were working at the same time somehow hit some kind of vibration that worked.
It's well put.
The thing with Spielberg, when I did that shoot and I was there for a week, I had been at Wicked for 17 years, almost 17 years, and experiencing such a high level of art, and such an exquisitely constructed piece of work. And for that week that I was there watching 140 dancers dancing in, I think it was about 102 degrees that July on the soundstage, no fans or anything because we're shooting, and watching these people dance all day long and seeing someone do a scene 34 times and having to get up there in a tuxedo, in a pink tuxedo, and play this, over and over and over, and all of these. The quiet, the calm, the organization, and the absolute commitment of 150% from every single person in that gymnasium taught me that it's possible and it's demanded. That's the way it has to be. So you learn to be as excellent as you can at all times. And that's a great, great, great feeling, because then you can really be, you can be a real taskmaster to yourself and to what you're actually doing, and really squeeze out the best that you could be. And that feels so good when it happens.
Yeah, that is really empowering to hear going into where we are now in the pandemic, to feel empowered, because it's upended performance calendars, as we've said. This is your first live gig in a long time, huh, Rick?
8 months.
And along with everything else, of course, it's been a very trying time for artists in general, not little musicians. And so I just, on a ending note here with you, is curious of, like, have you found that this disruption has allowed you to pursue some new directions? We'll call it those moments between the songs, if you will, between your normal gigs, between those bread and butter gigs of your previous pandemic life. Have you found some connectivity in new things?
Yes, absolutely. I'm studying the mandolin, so I'm doing a lot of mandolin playing, a lot. And I'm also studying composition with my composition teacher, who I had the last lesson 30 years ago. And he's great, Edgar Grana. And he's been gracious enough to take me on again. I've been writing a lot of chamber works and small ensemble works. So having this time where I don't have to go to the theater and, the whole thing where it's like, you get the green juice and, you work out, like, get on the subway and, read the Kindle and all this stuff that we do on the way there and whatever. And I do miss the camaraderie. I miss social interactions. That's an interesting kind of pause that's happened here. That's why I said at the beginning is civilizational pause. But the opportunity to expand and to grow and to take my time with things has really been amazing. It's I can do uninterrupted work, which is something that in New York City, by definition, and by the fact that we are freelance musicians and we do what we do, it's difficult to find long stretches of uninterrupted time. So the benefits and the payoffs from those, the dividends from those open periods of concentration are unique in themselves. You don't get that all the time. To be able to work on a piece for 3-4 days uninterrupted is a real...
Some people are unnerved by it.
Well,
interestingly.
Yes, I know that because, we all have our handles, the way that we attach ourselves to our lives, to give ourselves validity and a sense of the movement of time and forward motion. I have always been able to be kind of introverted and solitary in that way, so it helps quite a bit to have this time.
Right. Where do listeners, where can they go to hear your compositions?
I have a YouTube channel.
Okay.
So I think what I do is I make little films and I put music to them.
Oh, nice.
And there's a lot of different styles that you'll find there. I have a bunch of music up on Bandcamp now. I have a Bandcamp page, and all you have to do is just look for Ric Molina, RICMOLINA, and that'll lead you. Just Google that and you'll find all kinds of things. But the YouTube is where I concentrate putting music things on there.
Okay.
And Bandcamp.
Well, thanks again, Ric, for being here today and joining us for this live and local episode of Inwood Artworks On Air. It's really great to see you, man.
Oh, it's great to see you too, Aaron. Thanks a lot so much.
Certainly, sir. Well, again, Inwood Artworks On Air is where we meet musicians, filmmakers, writers, theater makers, and artists of all kinds who make their home here in Upper Manhattan. If you have a moment, please show us some love right now by rating and reviewing this podcast on Apple Podcasts. It really helps. Thanks again to 809 Restaurant and Lounge here on Dyckman Street and to HeightSites.com for local uptown promotional support. Be sure to follow us on social media at Inwood Artworks to keep up with all that we do, including the Inwood Film Festival, Filmworks Al Fresco, pop-up art galleries, live performances, and so much more. And if you would like to support On Air and our free venture here, please make a tax-free donation at inwoodartworks.nyc/donate. Inwood Artworks On Air is made possible with funding from the NYC Company Foundation with support from Manhattan Borough President Gale Brewer and the NYSCA Electronic Media and Film Grant Program in partnership with Wave Farm Media Arts Assistance Fund and the support of Governor Andrew Cuomo and the New York State Legislature. From the top of Manhattan and the bottom of our hearts, thank you for tuning in today. This is Aaron Sims.
I'm Jonathan Bill.
For Inwood Artworks On Air.